Narayana Namaskritya Naram Chaiv Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudire Nashtaprayeshu Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttam Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtiki. So continuing with the discussion on Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 4, Chapter 23rd, Maharaj Prithu's Going Back Home. Text number 11 onwards. Tasyanaya bhagavata parikarma shuddha sattvatmanastad anusansmarana purtya jnanam virakti mad bhunishitena yena chiched sanshay padam nijjiva kosham. By regularly discharging devotional service, Prithu Maharaj became transcendental in mind and could therefore constantly think of the lotus feet of the Lord. Because of this, he became completely detached and attained perfect knowledge by which he could transcend all doubt. Thus, he was freed from the clutches of false ego and material conception of life. In the Narad Pancharatra, devotional service to the Lord is likened unto a queen. When a queen gives an audience, many maidservants follow her. The maidservants of devotional service are material opulence, liberation, and mystic powers. So Bhukti, Mukti, and Siddhi, they follow the queen of Bhakti. The karmis are very much attached to material enjoyment. The jnanis are very anxious to become free from material clutches. And the yogis are very fond of attaining the 8 kinds of mystic perfection. From the Narad Pancharatra, we understand that if one attains the stage of pure devotional service, he also attains all the opulences derived from fruitive activities, empiric philosophical speculation, and mystic yoga practice. So if one attains a stage of pure devotional service, he gets everything. He doesn't want it, he doesn't need it, he doesn't care for it, but he gets everything. And Narad Pancharatra speaks beautifully. When a queen comes, the maidservants come along with her. Srila Bilbangal Thakur therefore prayed in his Krishna Kathamrita, Krishna Karnamrita, my dear Lord, if I have unflinching devotion unto you, you become manifest before me personally, and the results of fruitive activity and empiric philosophical speculation, namely religion, economic development, sense gratification, and liberation, become like personal attendants and remain standing before me as if awaiting my order. So this is Bilbangal Thakur speaking that religion, economic development, dharma, artha, kama, moksha, they become like personal attendants and they remain standing before me. Give us something or some order. Tell us what to do. But devotee doesn't bother. The idea here is that the jnanis by culture of Brahma Vidya, spiritual knowledge, struggle very hard to get out of the clutches of material nature. But a devotee, by dint of his advancement in devotion service, automatically becomes detached from his material body. When the devotee's spiritual body begins to manifest, he actually enters into his activities in transcendental life. So this is what happens when we are engaged in devotion service. So a spiritual body begins to manifest. Now, how much it has manifested, that depends upon how much service, how sincerely we have put in our effort. And when it really becomes manifest, so just like the stages say, na, Shraddha, then Sadhu Sangha, then Bhajan Kriya, Narth Nivriti, Nishtha, Ruchi, Asakti, Bhav, Prem. So even at this level of Nishtha, he gets some feeling because he's fixed up now. And that's what Prabhupada says. He actually enters into his activities in transcendental life. At present, we have contacted a material body, material mind, and material intelligence. But when we become free from these material conditions, our spiritual body, spiritual mind, and spiritual intelligence become manifest. so, so this spiritual body, spiritual mind, spiritual intelligence, it's all here. It's not going to come from outside somewhere, no. It's all here. It's just covered over. It has to come out properly. And then the process is yoga. Bhakti yoga, the process is very simple and very potent. Others, they're not that simple. In that transcendental state, a devotee attains all the benefits of karma, jnana, and yoga. Although he never engages in fruitive activities or empiric speculation to attain mystic powers, automatically mystic powers appear in his service. A devotee does not want any kind of material opulence, but such opulence appears before him automatically. He does not have to endeavor for it. Because of his devotional service, he automatically becomes Brahmabhuta. Means at a stage here, or Brahmabhuta means he attains that stage of liberation. So one who is engaged in full devotional service, unfailing in all circumstances, at once transcends the modes of material nature and thus comes to the level of Brahman, comes to the spiritual platform. Because of his regular discharge of devotional service, a devotee attains a transcendental stage of life. Since his mind is transcendently situated, he cannot think of anything but the lotus feet of the Lord. This is the meaning of the word samsmaran anupurtya. By constantly thinking of the lotus feet of the Lord, the devotee immediately becomes situated in Shuddha Sattva. Shuddha Sattva refers to that platform which is above the modes of material nature, including the mode of goodness. In the material world, the mode of goodness is considered to be representative of the highest perfection. But one has to transcend this mode and come to the state of Shuddha Sattva or pure goodness, where the three qualities of material nature cannot act. So when he is regularly discharging devotional service, Mam Jayo Avyabhicharin. Avyabhicharin means without any other mixture, pure devotional service. Then he comes to the level of Shuddha Sattva, even beyond material mode of goodness. The Shuddha Sattva platform is a spiritual platform, or it's also called Vasudeva Sattva. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur gives the following example. If one has a strong digestive power, after eating he automatically lights a fire within his stomach to digest everything and does not need to take medicine to aid his digestion. Similarly, the fire of devotional service is so strong that a devotee does not need to act separately to attain perfect knowledge or detachment from material attractions. So fire of devotional service is so strong that a devotee does not need to act separately to attain perfect knowledge or detachment from material attractions. It's a nice example. If a jatragni or the fire in the stomach is strong, if a strong digestive power, as soon as we eat something, it will digest it. We don't need medicine or Hajmola or anything like that. So similarly, this devotional service fire has to be very strong. So we don't need extra endeavor for anything. Perfect knowledge or jnana or vairagya, we don't need separately. A jnani may become detached from material attractions by prolonged discussions on the subjects of knowledge, and may in this way finally come to the Brahmbhuta stage. But a devotee does not need to undergo such struggle. By virtue of his devotional service, he attains the Brahmbhuta stage without a doubt. The yogis and jnanis are always doubtful about their constitutional position. Therefore, they mistakenly think of becoming one with the Supreme. However, a devotee's relationship with the Supreme becomes manifest beyond all doubt, and he immediately understands that his position is that of eternal servant of the Lord. Jnanis and yogis without devotion may think themselves liberated, but actually their intelligence is not as pure as that of a devotee. In other words, jnanis and yogis cannot become factually liberated unless they become elevated to the position of devotees. So jnanis and yogis, ultimate is bhakti yoga, jnana yoga, dhyana yoga, hatha yoga, everything finally has to come to the level of bhakti yoga. That's what Krishna also says, na? Bahunam janmanam ante jnanvan mam prapadyate. After many, many births, a person who has some knowledge, he surrenders unto me. And surrender process is bhakti. The jnanis and yogis may rise to the highest position, Brahman realization, but because of their lack of devotion unto the lotus feet of the Lord, they again fall down into material nature. Therefore, jnana and yoga should not be accepted as real processes for liberation. By discharging devotional service, Maharaj Prithu automatically transcended all these positions. Since Maharaj Prithu was the Shaktavesh incarnation of the Supreme Lord, he did not have to act in any way to attain liberation. He came from the Vaikuntha world or spiritual sky in order to execute the will of the Supreme Lord on earth. Consequently, he was to return home back to Godhead without having to execute jnana, yoga, or karma. Although Prithu Maharaj was eternally a pure devotee of the Lord, he nonetheless adopted the process of devotional service in order to teach the people in general the proper process for executing the duties of life and ultimately returning home back to Godhead. So here also in the shloka, although Prithu Maharaj was doing tapasya and meditating, but what he was meditating upon? Constantly thinking of the lotus feet of the Lord. So that was devotional service. It's not that in bhakti we don't meditate. We do meditate. Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu Smaranam. Vishnu Smaranam is there. But our meditation is on the Lord, lotus feet of the Lord, or on the service of the Lord, how I can serve Him better. That's our meditation, not meditating on some flame or some other light or on a point or whatever. No other kind of meditation. Chinnanya dhira dhigatatman gatir nirihis tattatya je achinadidam vayunena yena tavanna yoga gatibhir yati pramato yavad gatagraj kathasu ratim na kuryat. When he became completely free from the conception of bodily life, Maharaj Prithu realized Lord Krishna sitting in everyone's heart as a Paramatma. Being thus able to get all instructions from him, he gave up all other practices of yoga and jnana. He was not even interested in the perfection of the yoga and jnana systems, for he thoroughly realized that devotional service to Krishna is the ultimate goal of life, and that unless the yogis and jnanis become attracted to Krishna Katha, narrations about Krishna, the illusions concerning existence can never be dispelled. So his realization was that jnanis and yogis, they also have to come to the level of bhakti or Krishna Katha, attraction to hear Krishna Katha. Otherwise, there will be an illusion always. As long as one is too much absorbed in bodily conception of life, he becomes interested in many different processes of self-realization, such as the mystic yoga system or the system utilizing the speculative empiric methods. So, Hatha Yoga or Jnana Yoga. However, when one understands that the ultimate goal of life is to approach Krishna, he realizes Krishna within everyone's heart and therefore helps everyone who is interested in Krishna consciousness. Actually, the perfection of life depends on one's inclination to hear about Krishna. It is therefore mentioned in this verse, Yavad Gadavirajikatha Suratim na Kuryat. Unless one becomes interested in Krishna, in his pastimes and activities, there is no question of liberation by means of yoga practice or speculative knowledge. So only by yoga practice of Gyan, Hatha Yoga or Gyan, one cannot get liberated until one becomes interested in Krishna. Having attained to the state of devotion, Maharaj Prithu became uninterested in the practices of Gyan and Yoga and abandoned them. This is the stage of pure devotional life as described by Rupa Goswami. Real Gyan means understanding that the living entity is the eternal servant of the Lord. This knowledge is attained after many, many births as confirmed in Bhagavad Gita. In the Paramhansa stage of life, one fully realizes Krishna is everything. Vasudeva Sarvamiti Mahatma Sudurlabha. When one understands fully that Krishna is everything and that Krishna consciousness is the highest perfection of life, he becomes a Paramhansa or Mahatma. So that is Paramhansa. Krishna is everything and that Krishna consciousness is the highest perfection of life. Why is he called a Paramhansa? So Hansa or a swan has a peculiar quality that he can separate milk from water. So if we give him in a pot milk, and just like in India, they add water to the milk. So if we present it to a Hansa, he can sip milk out of it and leave the water part in the pot. That's quality he has. So what is a Paramhansa then? So Paramhansa is one, if we give him anything in the material, so he just picks Krishna from there. He leaves the material things as they are. He doesn't care for anything material. So this is what Prabhupada says. When one understands fully that Krishna is everything and that Krishna consciousness is the highest perfection of life, or in everything that he sees Krishna. That's a Paramhansa. A Paramhansa or pure devotee is never attracted by Hatha Yoga or speculative knowledge. He is simply interested in the unalloyed devotional service of the Lord. Sometimes one who was formerly addicted to these processes tries to perform devotional service and jnana and yoga practices at the same time. But as soon as one comes to the unalloyed stage of devotional service, he is able to give up all other methods of self-realization. In other words, when one firmly realizes Krishna as the supreme goal, he is no longer attracted by mystic yoga practice or the speculative empirical method of knowledge. So then he's got the final aim of life. So this Paramhansa or Mahatma, so in Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, Mahatmanas tu mam partha devim prakritim ashrita. So the Mahatmas are the ones who have taken shelter of my superior energy, Devi Prakriti. So Devi Prakriti, superior energy means the spiritual energy. Or ultimately it means Srimati Radharani actually. So that is where Prabhupada had problem with people calling somebody Mahatma Gandhi or whatever. But he said that's not the meaning of Mahatma given by Krishna. And also Paramhansa, that Guruji of Vivekananda, so they call him Paramhansa. But he's not Paramhansa. Paramhansa, according to scriptures, is one who's a pure devotee. of Krishna. Devotee means Krishna, or Vishnu Tattva. No, not Kali, not Durga, not any demigod, nothing else of Vishnu Tattva. So, but people, the herd mentality is there, so it's hard to preach to everybody. Only until one comes to real knowledge by studying Prabhupada's books, it's very difficult to figure out who's who. Anybody who just grows beard and wears robes, saffron or white or pink or whatever color robes, and people just throng around him and they call him he's Mahatma and he's Paramahansa, whatever. It doesn't work like that. एवं सवीर प्रवरः संयोज्यमात्मात्मने ब्रह्मभूतो दृढ़ं काले तत्यास्वं कलेवरम्. In due course of time, when Prithu Maharaj was to give up his body, he fixed his mind firmly upon the lotus feet of Krishna and thus completely situated on the Brahma-bhuta platform, he gave up the material body. See, this is the right way of living the body. Mind firmly fixed upon the lotus feet of Krishna and completely situated on the Brahma-bhuta platform. According to a Bengali proverb, whatever spiritual progress one makes in life will be tested at the time of death. The beautiful proverb Prabhupada mentioned it someplace. Bhakti kari, sadhana kari, bhakti kari, jiver marale koe, something like that. I'll try to find out exactly what he said. So, spiritual progress, it's not like, yes, Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita that at the time of death, whatever one's consciousness is, he attains that state without fail. But the consciousness at the time of death is decided by our activities, our association, our services, our sadhana throughout our life. It's not that at the time of death there will be passing thought and changes our consciousness. Not going to happen. Consciousness is something fixed, something that has been developed over a course of, if not whole life, major part of life. Because children life, we can leave it aside. But if the children also performing bhakti, then that goes in their sanskar. In Bhagavad Gita, it is also confirmed, yam yam vapi smaran bhavam. Those who are practicing Krishna consciousness know that their examination will be held at the time of death. If one can remember Krishna at death, he is immediately transferred to Golok Vrindavan or Krishna Loka, and thus his life becomes successful. Prithu Maharaj, by the grace of Krishna, could understand that the end of his life was near, and thus he became very jubilant and proceeded to completely give up his body in the Brahma-bhuta stage by practicing the yogic process. It is thoroughly described in the following verses how one can voluntarily give up this body and return home back to Godhead. The yogic process practiced by Prithu Maharaj at the time of death accelerates the giving up of his body while one is in sound health physically and mentally. Every devotee desires to give up the body while it is sound physically and mentally. This desire was also expressed by King Kulashekhar in his Mukund Mala Stotra. King Kulashekhar wanted to give up his body while in a healthy state, and he thus prayed to Krishna to let him die immediately, while he was in good health and while his mind was sound. When a man dies, he is generally overpowered by mucus and bile, and thus he chokes. Since it is very difficult to vibrate any sound while choking, it is simply by Krishna's grace that one can chant Hare Krishna at the time of death. However, by situating oneself in the Mukta Asan position, a yogi can immediately give up his body and go to whatever planet he desires. A perfect yogi can give up his body whenever he desires through the practice of yoga. So the perfect yogi, he gives up his body through the practice of yoga. But a bhakti yogi, a devotee, he gives us his body based on the mercy of Krishna. So yogi can make a mistake, but Krishna cannot make a mistake. So this is what even Prabhupada, some devotees asked Prabhupada, it says in Bhagavad Gita that whatever you think of at the time of death, that is the body you'll get next life without fail. So they asked Prabhupada that throughout our life, if we serve Krishna, like you're saying, do book distribution and Sankirtan and chant and follow the principles and attend the temple programs, and if we do all this, but still, because of our weaknesses, still at the time of death, if we don't think of Krishna, then what will happen to us? And Prabhupada said, if you do all these practices that I have given you, and by some chance, if you cannot think of Krishna at the time of death, Krishna will think of you at the time of death and he'll take you back with him. So devotee, the beauty of devotion service is they're just surrendered, they're just relying completely upon Krishna, upon the mercy of Krishna. And Krishna will never let his devotees down. He never does that. And like sometimes devotees also say, okay, Krishna might get busy because he has so many other devotees to look after. Of course, it's never going to happen. He's a supreme personality of Godhead. He can be at gazillion places at the same time. But even if, for some reason, he cannot come, he cannot make it, and the devotee leaves the body, the devotee is saying, Srila Prabhupada will never forget. He himself will come and take the devotee back. Because after all, this is Prabhupada's moment. Everybody who is serving in this moment is serving Prabhupada personally. And Prabhupada, being so grateful to every little service done by his followers, he's not going to let them down. And if a pure devotee like Prabhupada, he accepts any devotee, then Krishna has to accept it. That's why we had studied earlier that Krishna does not give devotional service, devotion very easily because he gets controlled, he gets purchased by the devotee. So Srila Prabhupada can make anything happen. That's why he's called desire tree. He's a real desire tree. Kalpataru. So anything we want, we can ask Prabhupada and he can give us. And especially since he's a spiritual grandfather. And grandfathers they just love and spoil their grandkids more than they love their own sons. So in that respect, we are very dear to Srila Prabhupada. So Prabhupada will never let us down. He's always there. He's still there. He will be there. Always. Just have full faith in him and continue on with our devotion service. Okay, so we'll stop here. See anybody has any questions or comments? Okay, so we'll stop here. You all have a safe and wonderful day. Hare Krishna. Jai Shri Prabhupada.
Hare